It's so funny. You get older, kind of want the quiet.
Yeah.
And when you're younger, you want the noise. And the balance is the thing that some of us achieve. And then there are those who burn themselves out.
I think that
and it's that kind of equilibrium and the equanimity and all of that is the struggle that leaves so many artists dead drunk and sold out. You brought that up. You were talking about tech and how tech has just commodified so much art making. And capitalism has commodified so much art making that there are these artists who are really only looking at how did I do at the auction or how much money did I get for an advance? And of course, artists have to live. So we're dealing with all these kind of dichotomy, and it feels more unbalanced than ever. And I think getting to that place of quiet and purity and finding the divine intervention and putting the ego aside is the struggle. And I think that's what you're working to do in your work. And especially with art school coming up here, dealing with notions of creativity and genius, I work with a lot of people who go in with intent.
Right.
But if it's unformed intent, it usually works better because it's pure. When intent is too great, it falls in on itself a lot of the time. And that's
because I've seen a lot of people enter with great talent and not enough intent. Their art just ends up being scribbling.
Right.
And then they end up bitter because then they end up not being able to sell their art. And then they see the NFTs and people are making a fortune on those. And so
I think it's over. I think it ended.
Yeah.
I think it had like a 3-month run.
So my question to you is, my experience of you is that you're at once a tank and a delicate surgical implement. Both of those seem to be required because your heart hasn't hardened. You're still incredibly sensitive to the most nuanced word. So then what would be your suggestion for people who are entering a field? Because what I see is people lacking that and art suffering, even dying as a result.
It cost me a job that I have. But like the first thing I say is don't get an MFA unless it's in another state and you're fully funded and it provides you with the time to just be alone and write. Because I find that those environments of hyper-professionalization of artists don't work. The minute you try to professionalize something, it falls in on itself.
Right.
The minute you try to corporatize something, and the enrollment in MFA programs, because when there were fewer of them, there were more interesting voices because people weren't necessarily being taught the same thing. You go into a workshop, and if one professor has a particular vision of, this is like the Gordon Lish story. Gordon Lish, who was a great editor, was a great writer, he birthed a lot of really interesting writers. They were cast by him. And for those who didn't get his thing, it was hard. I just think you can't teach writing. You can only lead people to it. And workshops are great for craft. And craft, what does that mean right now? I don't know what, there are so many forms of literature. I think people have to work from the gut and put themselves in a box and not think about what the world, their mother, the agent, a potential publisher is thinking. And those are the people who usually wind up really frustrated early and really happy later.